Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavatakacharya Asadhara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Glorious to the sound devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Garanga. Om Gyanantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakans Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Tubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Chadvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 15, Parashuram, the Lord's Warring Incarnation, and we're starting with text number, yes, I read. We read about the Karmaduk cow yesterday. What's that? 15. Okay, and today is 16. So we have a little story here about Lord Parashuram and Arjuna, Kritavira Arjuna. So text 16. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, just to get up to where we read the verse today. You'll find out how many Akshohinis, how many men are in Akshohini in case you become a general sometime, so some useful information. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, what was the offense of the Kshatriyas who cannot control their senses committed before our Lord Parashuram, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which the Lord annihilated the Kshatriya dynasty again and again. Shukadeva Goswami said, the best of the Kshatriyas, Karta Virya Arjuna, king of the Hihayas, received 1,000 arms by worshipping Dattatreya, the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. He also became undefeatable by enemies and received unobstructed sensory power, beauty, influence, strength, fame, and mystic power, by which to achieve all the perfections of yoga, such as anima and lagnima. Having become fully opulent, he roamed all over the universe without opposition, just like the wind. Once, while enjoying the water of the river Narmada, the puffed-up Kartavira Arjuna, surrounded by beautiful women and garland of victory, stopped the flow of the water with his arms. Because Kartavira Arjuna made the water flow in the opposite direction, the camp of Ravana, which was set up on the bank of the Narmada near the city of Mahishmati, was inundated. This was unbearable to the 10-headed Ravana, who considered himself a great hero and could not tolerate Kartavya Arjuna's power. So this is Treta Yuga. Purport: Ravana was out touring to gain victory over all other countries, Digvijaya, and he had camped on the bank of the Narmada river near the city of Mahishmati. When Ravana attempted to insult Kartavya Arjuna in the presence of the women and offended him, Kartavya Arjuna easily arrested Ravana, put him in custody of the city of Mahishmati, just as one captures a monkey and then released him neglectfully. So just imagine how powerful Kartavya Arjuna was. Once when Kartavya Arjuna was wandering unengaged in a solitary forest and hunting, he approached the residence of Janmadagni. Purport: Kartavya Arjuna had no business going to the residence of Janmadagni, but because he was puffed up by his extraordinary power, he went there and offended Parshuram. This was a prelude to his being killed by Parshuram for his offensive act. So that's just to give us an idea that Ravana was so powerful that he put up a fight against an incarnation of God, Lord Ramachandra, but he was captured just like a monkey by Kartavya Arjuna, who was defeated by Parsuram. So just imagine how powerful Parsuram was. The sage, Janmadagni, who was engaged in great austerities in the forest, received the king very well, along with the king's soldiers, ministers, and carriers. He supplied all the necessities to worship these guests, for he possessed a Kamadhenu, a cow, that was able to supply everything. Purport: The Brahma Samhita states, the Brahma Samhita informs us that in the spiritual world, especially the planet of Goloka, Vrindavan, where Krishna lives, is full of Sarabi cows, Sarabira Avipalyantam. The Sarabi cow is also called Karmadenu. Although Janmadagni possessed only one Kamadhenu, he was able to get from it everything desirable. He was able to receive the king along with the king's great number of followers, ministers, soldiers, animals, and palanquin carriers. When we speak of a king, we understand that he is accompanied by many followers. Janmadagni was able to receive all the king's followers properly and feed them sumptuously with food prepared in ghee. He was astonished at how opulent Janmadagni was possessing only one cow, and therefore he became envious of the great sage. This was the beginning of his offense. Parsuram, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Kartavya Arjuna because Kartavya Arjuna was too proud. One may possess unusual opulence in this material world, but if one becomes puffed up and acts whimsically, he will be punished by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the lesson to learn from this history in which Parsuram became angry at Kartavya Arjuna and killed him and rid the entire world of Kshatriyas 21 times. Text 25. Kartavya Arjuna thought that Janmadagni was more powerful and wealthy than himself because of possessing a jewel in the form of a Karmadhenu. My mother used to say, no matter how good you are, there's always someone better.
I'm having a little trouble with the mic online. I'm just going to switch it.
Kartavya, therefore he and his own men, the Hayas, were not very appreciative of Janmadagni's reception. On the contrary, they wanted to possess that Kamadhenu, which was useful for the execution of the Agnihotra sacrifice. So you treat guests nicely, you feed them sumptuously, and they become envious of you. And this is Treta Yuga. This is the Yuga when practically everyone has good qualities, except for the powerful people. Anyhow, be careful who you invite into your home, who you feed. What's that? This is supposed to be the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Doesn't seem like they did that much better in Treta Yuga. Purport: Janmandagni was more powerful than Kartavira Arjuna because performing the Agnihotra Yagya. So, if the householders want to become powerful, just do a little Agnihotra Yagya, and maybe you'll get a Kamadhenu cow. With clarified butter received from the Kamadhenu. Not everyone can be expected to possess such a cow. Nonetheless, an ordinary man may possess an ordinary cow, give protection to the animal, take sufficient milk from it, and engage the milk to produce butter and clarified ghee, especially performing the Agnihotra Yagya. This is possible for everyone. Thus, we find in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advises us, Go Raksha, protection of the cows. Is this what I read yesterday? Oh, you should have told me this. So, anyhow, let's go on. Being puffed up by material power, Kartavya Arjuna encouraged his men to steal Jamadagni's Kamadhenu. Thus the men forcibly took away the crying Kamadhenu along with her calf to Mahishmati, Kartavya Arjuna's capital. Purport: the word Havidanam is significant in this verse. Havidanam refers to a cow required for supplying havi or ghee for the performance of ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices. In human life, one should be trained to perform yagyas. I actually did read this yesterday. What's that? What did I start with yesterday? Okay, that's what I thought. We informed them about and Havidanam refers to a cow required for supplying havis or ghee for the performance of ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices. In human life, one should be trained to perform yagyas. As we are informed in Bhagavad Gita, Jagnata karmanon yatra yoko yam karma bandhanai. If we do not perform yagya, we will simply work very hard for sense gratification, like hogs and dogs and hogs. This is not civilization. A human being should be trained to perform yagya. Jagnat bhavati parjanyo. If yagyas are regularly performed, there will be proper rain from the sky. When there's regular rainfall, there'll be regular rainfall. The land will be fertile and suitable, producing all the necessities of life. Jagna, therefore, is essential for performing yagya. Clarified butter is essential. For clarified butter, cow protection is essential. Therefore, if we neglect the Vedic way of civilization, we shall certainly suffer. For so-called scholars and philosophers do not know the secret of success in life. Therefore, they suffer in the hands of Prakriti, nature. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Nevertheless, although we are forced to suffer, they think they are advancing civilization. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore meant to revive a mode of civilization in which everyone will be happy. This is the mode of our Krishna consciousness movement. Jagne sukhena bhavantu. Seems like a good verse to read. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Siddharna. Now we're up to the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, approaching the 10th canto, which is full of extraordinary pastimes. But this pastime is pretty extraordinary. Generally, most of the time, we don't see people with 1,000 arms, nor do we see Karmadhenus. nor do we see anyone performing any sacrifice nowadays either with clarified butter. Anyhow, it's all quite extraordinary. As a matter of fact, Srimad Bhagavatam is quite extraordinary. But the point is, we have to always go back to Bhagavad Gita, because right now there's nothing in modern society which is very extraordinary. It's so ordinary. The only extraordinary thing is how foolish people can get in Kali Yuga. Not only people in general, but even ourselves, we have to understand that as Krishna begins Bhagavad Gita, the most elementary literature that we have, with Arjuna being practically as rebellious as we are, refusing to do his duty. At least he knew what his duty was supposed to be, but although he was refusing to do it, we're so confused that we don't know what our duty is. Just like mostly our duties, we think, is to attend prasadam, which is good. Prabhupada encouraged us to take prasadam. But if you want to find out how many devotees are in a temple, you have to come to prasadam. Otherwise, it's very difficult to know who's there. But that's good. Prasadam will also help us advance the spiritual life, because the main business of life, material life, is eating. But we're supposed to learn how to eat to live and not live to eat. That was the first verse I learned in French. And most people are not understanding that because they haven't heard or they haven't accepted the first verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Denosmin nita dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dahantara praptir diryas tatra namuyati. That our bodies are changing, which I think most people, sane people, can agree with. But also our minds are changing. That most people think that their mind is changing, that means that they're changing. They don't understand that behind the mind, behind their intelligence, behind their false ego, there's a real ego, which is eternal. And therefore, they don't see how things are actually going on in the material world. As Krishna says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara iti ahankara tiyame bina no, that's all right. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Just so happens we talk about Kartavya Arjuna. Karta means the doer. So Kartavya Arjuna, I think Virya means power. So he thought he was a powerful doer. So we're thinking we're the doer also, and everyone takes pride in the fact that somehow or another we have some power, whatever it might be. We take pleasure in the fact that we have something to be powerful about. If we can't lord it over country, think ourselves to be the ruler of the country, then we think ourselves to be ruler of our house. And if we don't have a house, or if we're the mouse in the house, then we think we're the ruler of that little hole in the house. And everyone has the same amount of pride and pleasure in lording it over, either a country, a universe, a house, or a hole in the house as a mouse. But everyone has this pleasure of being the lord. And ultimately, every lord needs his Lakshmi, his consort. So in the spiritual world is Lakshmi Narayan or Sita Ram or Radha and Krishna. And in this material world, they have their consorts, the king and the queen, and the president and his wife, the man in the house, etc., etc. So therefore, everyone is imitating Radha and Krishna. That this is my house, this is my consort, we have our kingdom, we have our expansions. the intelligent children in my house, they're plenary expansions, and the less intelligent, they're partial expansions. I have my Garuda, my car, and we travel to the three worlds, the three cities or the three temples, whatever it might be, to display our opulence. So the man thinks like that. The Tarzan thinks like that. He has Jane. Mickey Mouse has Minnie Mouse. Everyone has their consort and their idea that they're the lords of the material energy and that they're expanding themselves into more and more kingdoms. But this is all due to illusion. As it says, Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsam Sangas Te Shupajayate Sangas Sanjayate Kama Krodo Bujayate. Due to this illusion of the fact that we've forgotten who we are, because we've lost our intelligence, as the next verse will say, we've been carried away by this illusory concept of life, and Maya, Krishna Bahir Mukha Bhoga Vanchatare, Nikatasta Tare Japatiyadare. As soon as we turn our face away from Krishna, and the question is, who in this modern society even knows Krishna exists or where he exists so they can turn their face to him? Although Krishna is present everywhere, and the most obvious manifestation of Krishna for all of us is called time. Now, whether we like it or not, time is everywhere, and time is pervading everything. And therefore, time is causing everything to change, and ultimately the change means every moment we're getting closer to leaving this body called death. Now, generally speaking, if someone comes up to you and says, I'm going to kill you, you call the police, and hopefully they come sometime. And you say, this man wants to kill me. And then hopefully they arrest him, because he's a terrorist. But the number one terrorist in this universe is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The very person that we have in this altar, who seems quite benevolent, playing on his flute, but in this material world, he has some power that he's killing everyone, including ourselves. Even his devotees, he's also killing them. But if you call the police and say there's a terrorist at the temple, he's killing everyone, and they ask who it is, and you say it's Krishna, and they say, I don't believe in him. So he's safe, because no one believes in him. Therefore, he can go on with his killing business in the form of time. When Arjuna asked him, before you were a vegetarian, you seemed to be a reasonable person. Somehow or another, I asked you to show me some form of yours, and now I find out that one of your activities, you eat warriors on battlefields. I'm quite surprised. Not only that, but you're breathing, people who smoke is against the principles, but you're breathing fire out of your mouth. So Arjuna is quite shocked. So he asked Krishna, what is this horrible form of yours? What's the purpose? Pravitim, especially. So then Krishna says, Kalos mi lokashe krit pravrido, lokam samahartamiha pravritak, itepitam naba vishanti sarve, evastita pratnuke shiyoda. Time I am, the destroyer of all the worlds, I have come to engage all of you. Except for you, the 5 Pandavas, everyone here is going to be slain. So our very dear friend Krishna is also the one who's killing everyone, including ourselves, who's changing our body at every moment, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can't go to Krishna and offer a prayer, Dear Krishna, can you please stop changing my body? It's very inconvenient. You're putting me in anxiety. Krishna will smile and go on with his business. There's no prayer we can offer. There's no way out of it. Everyone has a beginning and an end, and therefore Krishna says we have to learn how to tolerate, because he doesn't, time is there, and he's neutral. Although we claim that Krishna is above time, and he is, in his form of Vishnu, that time is controlling the three modes, as Prabhupada writes, which is manifesting our karma for us. And although Vishnu is expansion, but Krishna says, Nachama tani karmani nibbannanti dhananjaya udasinadvar asinama sakyam teshu karmasu. That all those work cannot bind me, I am situated as though neutral. So Krishna is in this form of Paramatma who's controlling time. He's neutral. He's simply awarding people according to what they've done, and he's condemning people according to what they've done. Of course, he also says, Samaham samarbhuteshu namai dveshto sitam napriyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhakta maite teshu chapyaham. I'm envious of no one, nor I'm equal to all, yet whoever renders service unto me in devotion, he's a friend, he's in me, and I'm a friend to him. So this illusory, this material existence, it's not illusory for us, it's quite real, but it's temporary in that sense. It's being controlled by time, which we have no control over. Therefore, any sane person can admit they're not the controller. They're not the ultimate decider of what's happening here. Time is changing everything. And above time, there's an intelligent person, Krishna, who has his form of time, and he's controlling everything. But he says he's not doing it arbitrarily. We're getting exactly what we deserve, or we're getting exactly what Krishna thinks we need to make spiritual advancement. If we're aspiring to become devotees, then time works in a different way. If we're simply acting according to the modes of material nature, then time will act in a different way. In any case, one requires some intelligence, spiritual intelligence. The other is simply a manifestation of lack of intelligence, of real intelligence. So we're in the position where we're trying to get intelligence, spiritual intelligence, but we're also being somewhat influenced by our material intelligence. So this is a caution that the most basic things we have to look at, namely that we're not the body to begin with, and the other thing is not sufficient to know that we're eternal spiritual souls because we're eternally in hell right now in the material world. To be eternal is good. To be eternally in hell is not the best place. Therefore, one has to acquire the intelligence how to get into an eternal world than to live eternally in a miserable, temporary world where we're full of ignorance and suffering. Therefore, to recognize that we're not the controller here is a good step, and that the controller will decide where we're going next. It's not that at the end of life you call up Amazon or you go on the internet and look at Amazon, you pick out your next body. You check your pious credits and you figure out, you ask Amazon or Krishna's Amazon store in this world, can you please give me this body? It's already going to be determined by exactly what we're doing in this world. Therefore, we have to be a little cautious if we want to get the best possible existence in our next life, because our next life is not that far away, although we may imagine it's not. In any case, we have to find out, we have to admit that we're eternal, we have to admit that there's a person who's going to decide where we're going next, just like he decided to put us into this lifetime. And that's called beginning of sanity. Therefore, Prabhupada writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the only human beings actually on this planet are the Brahmins. Even the Kshatriyas aren't considered to be part of the human society, of human beings actually. Although someone may be a saintly Kshatriya, a Rajasi, a saintly king, but generally speaking, most of the Kshatriyas, they're considered to be non-human. Although they do their duty, so eventually they become human beings. Human being means that they understand that they're eternal, that they're under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that they should work in such a way as to satisfy Vishnu, Jagyavai Vishnu. Therefore, in the 10th canto, we'll find so many powerful Kshatriyas, amazing Kshatriyas, who are not Krishna conscious or fully Krishna conscious. Rukmi or Duryodhana or others, powerful personalities in this universe, were deluded by the illusory energy. They weren't so powerful because none of us have any power, really. Our only power is either we choose to become Krishna conscious or we choose to imagine ourselves to be this body and live out our dreams in this world. Therefore, the actual enlightened Kshatriyas, like Prithu Maharaj or others, they understood that at the end of their life as ruling a kingdom, they went into the forest to become Krishna conscious. They didn't stay on for the last moment, trying to hold on to their position in the material world, thinking that where they're going next. This is my great opportunity. I became a great controller and enjoyer in this world, so why should I go anywhere else? I'm just going to stay here and try to live out my life of sense gratification to the last moment. No, they weren't so fooled because they actually cultivated knowledge, because they heard from the Brahmins. So, and here it says, if we understand that there's a controller, the supreme controller, everyone's amazement, he's, as we hear in the morning, that Venum Kwanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham, that he's playing on a flute. So, I mean, he's a musician, so people will appreciate that. They like musicians. But his position is he's herding cows, Palyantam. So that they think, this is ridiculous. God is a person who spends his eternity herding cows, and he doesn't even eat them. If we go back to the spiritual world, there's no McDonald's, so who would want to go? They're protecting these cows. And not only that, but they even drink milk. Could you imagine that? So people can't understand. It's just completely beyond their comprehension how the ultimate manifestation of reality, a cowherd boy and a cowherd girl. And their friends are all cowherd men or cowherd women. And they have cows. And they spend the whole time herding cows. Who in this world, is there any, very few universities you can go to learn how to become a cowherd boy? Except for this university, this Hare Krishna movement. Therefore people think we're completely out of our minds. And what to speak of when they come here and they hear that they're reading about people or flying around in a swan. And they're not little green people, they have 4 heads. And another one of their personalities who rides around on a bull of all people, of all things, rides around a bull. He has a river flowing through his hair and has 3 eyes. So people think these people not completely out of their minds. And yet they have some philosophy that we're not this body. How could that be true? How can such crazy people, how could this be true that I'm eternal? How could it be true that this time is controlling everything? So it doesn't make sense to people. They have the most basic philosophy that's absolutely real, and yet they've gone off on a tangent somewhere about people riding around in swans and peacocks and whatever. That are the person who created the universe lives on a lotus flower. I mean, these people must have been taking drugs or something. That's what they usually thought, we were taking drugs. I remember when I was in Buffalo, 1969, in the temple there, the police suddenly raided us because they heard we had drugs in the temple. Looked all over, they couldn't find anything. Because people are thinking these people are happy, they're dancing on the street. You know, the hairless Hare Krishnas are dancing in the street in the middle of winter in Buffalo, selling this magazine about four-headed people and a coward boy. And they're always so happy. They must be taking drugs. They think that Vyasadeva was sitting on the Himalayas, bored to death, just trying to meditate, looked around. There were so many herbs around, he started to experiment, and he got inspired to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. But still they can't deny when you say, they can deny, because you tell people that their body's changing, but they're not changing. They can't conceive what you're talking about. And even if they can conceive what you're talking about, they can't take it seriously. Just like we don't take it seriously either. What to speak of others. In the spiritual world, sometimes, well, even on Gokula Vrindavan, sometimes the coward ladies or the coward boys, they talk about how Krishna might be the Supreme Personality of Godhead or a demigod. But none of them take it seriously because they're in love with him. Therefore, they don't really consider it. Although Krishna does extraordinary things, lifting up Govardhan Hill with one pinky, holding it up for 7 days, but no one takes it seriously there. They say maybe Nanda Maharaj was holding up with his coward stick, with a coward man. Similarly, we know we're not this body, but because of our attachment to the material nature, we don't take it very seriously. And what to speak of someone who doesn't know that they're not their body? And then if they're told about time, about death, they think, well, you're being really pessimistic. You know, we have our scientists. They've gone to the moon. They've gone to Mars. They've made computers. Even our memories are going away. We can't remember where our computer is, but we have confidence that everything I need to know is in that computer. My memory is decreased. I don't even know who I am, but the computer knows everything. So the computers, their memory is increasing and our memory is going down every day. And we're proud how intelligent we are. In any case, we know we're not this body, but we don't take it seriously. And people don't know they're not their body. They're completely serious about material existence. And they don't want, many people don't want to hear anything else. Because it's, well, you know, what. First of all, we have no respect in society in general for most people. They think, well, they're nice people, you know, they're kind of fun to watch. See some crazy people dancing on the street or shouting some names or whatever. They have nice music. Some of them actually play and they know the beats. Some people tolerate us. They think it's amusement. And a lot of people would like to be free and dance on the street. That's what, you know. They take drugs and they try to imitate that feeling of freedom, but they see devotees just seem to be free from anxiety till they join the Hare Krishna movement and they find out what's really going on. That we're also struggling to come to the platform of understanding that we're not this body and accepting that Krishna is everywhere in the form of time. That he's controlling everything. That it's not just a theory that Krishna is God, it's a reality. And we can go on about Bhagavan, but the whole thing is we have the only science that actually is true, and everyone else is just living in an imagination. The question is, we have to wake up too, and accept this gift that we've been given and take it more seriously. And that's what material nature is helping us do. So here it says that if we neglect the Vedic way of life, if we neglect the Vedic way of civilization, we shall certainly suffer. So-called scholars and philosophers do not know the secret of success in life, therefore they suffer in the hands of Prakriti, nature. Although we're thinking we're advancing, yeah, we're advancing, we're going to hell as quickly as possible. Before, people had to take a bullock cart to hell. Now they have a jet plane goes there. or a rocket ship. We'll get there before the Yamadutas can get back. And yet people are so proud. They think that things are going to improve. But actually, unless we accept these basic principles, and then we can become a little humble, that God may be a person, first of all, and that he's a more powerful person than we are, and that he can do anything. He can even herd cows. But they're not ordinary cows. Here is a Kamaduk cow, that even the most powerful person in the universe, Kartavya Arjuna, was envious because the sage, Jamadagni, had one Kamaduk cow, and Krishna has unlimited, Sahasra. And not only Kamaduk cows, he has unlimited goddesses of fortune who are serving him. And that's just his expansion. So therefore, and practically speaking, when we accept we're not this body, then we have to accept everyone else is not their body. And we accept everyone else is not their body, we're all being controlled by Paramatma, his form of time, either as under the internal energy, Yoga Maya, is manifesting our devotional activities, or as Mahamaya, manifesting our karmic activities. In any case, it's all being manifested by Krishna. The only difference is some souls are desiring to serve Krishna, and some souls are desiring to serve the illusory energy. So our business is to become intelligent enough to desire to serve the spiritual energy, and that means to help other souls become intelligent enough to do that also, rather than becoming envious, like Kartavya Arjuna is envious of Janmadagni. Rather than becoming envious of people who are desiring to serve the illusory energy, as soon as we become like that, then we're under the illusory energy ourselves. The very thing we're envious of that they're doing, that we're criticizing and becoming resentful of, then we do the same thing immediately. And the same immediately when we start appreciating those who are desirous to perform devotional service, then we start performing devotional service. That desire, just that ability to appreciate those who are performing devotional service. And is it very complicated? No, it's to understand, to see reality, that we're eternal, we're under control of Krishna in the form of time, and Krishna is the ultimate goal of everything. He's the unlimitedly attractive person. There must be an unlimitedly attractive person. Otherwise, how do we become persons? So just to understand these basic things, that although he comes as a cowherd boy or whatever, 4 arms is Narayan, to accept him, and then understand Mogaisha Moga Karamano Moga Jnana Vicheta Saha Rakshasi Masanim Chaiva Prakriti Mohanim Shritaha. That whatever else we do in this world besides becoming Krishna conscious, we're just ultimately wasting our time. And even if there's some progression in material life, from karma yoga to jnana yoga to astanga yoga to Krishna consciousness, that's welcome, but we should understand that our hopes are our cultivation of, Mogaisha Moga Karmana, that in the meantime we're going to be deluded. Even when we take the indirect path, we're doing it under delusion, because we don't understand reality. But still, we have enough intelligence to make some progress through karma yoga, giving up the results of our activities, through jnana yoga, through astanga yoga. But ultimately, we'll be deluded. We'll live in delusion. So that's our problem, that we're performing devotional service and we're living in illusion at the same time. We're being deluded by the illusory energy, thinking I can gain something here, either in the form of material possessions or in the form of knowledge or power or whatever else. And therefore Krishna says, Daivi Mahatmanas tumam partha, Daivim prakriti mashitya, Bhajanananya manaso, Gyaprabhutadev avyam. Those who are great souls are under the spiritual energy. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So this knowledge of Krishna, that we're his servants, is so valuable that if we just apply it any time in our lives and our existence, which of course when we come to the temple, it's easier to apply, sadhana bhakti, but we have to apply it every stage of our life. Otherwise we come under the control of the illusory energy. And how do we apply it is very complicated. This whole philosophy, Sadadam kirtiyanto mam yatantas chadrida vritaha namasyantas samam bhaktya nituto pasade. It is extremely simple, at the beginning at least. That is, we simply glorify Krishna. We hear about Krishna, we find out how great it is. We try to use our intelligence to connect things so it becomes reasonable, becomes logical. Not that I'm reading this book, wow, is completely bewildering. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is our basic book. Without understanding Bhagavad Gita, this whole thing will just seem like a fairy tale. Although Prabhupada gave us the Krishna book, but when devotees, they read Krishna book, they read it to their children before they took rest, so they could have a nice dream about Agasura or Trinakasura, so they can dream of, nice things about all the demons. They thought it was fairy tales. Rather than, how else were we going to look at it? That these people, they fly around as tornadoes and pick up buildings and little boys and carry them into the sky, 800 yojanas high, and people, there's little big snakes who open their mouths and swallow whole millions of cowherd boys. How else are we going to look at it? Unless we read Bhagavad Gita and get our intelligence on the ground, our feet on the ground, and understand this is real, and we're an illusion. And how do we do that? Hear about Krishna, but not only hear this Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9th canto, we're supposed to have thoroughly understood the first canto, and to understand the first canto, we should have understood Bhagavad Gita in its entirety. Then we can understand how to live in this world so that gradually we can come to reality. And therefore Prabhupada in his purports, throughout all his purports, he's just always bringing us back into reality. So that we can live in this world and not imagine that we're gopis or cowherd boys prematurely. Understand that we're conditioned souls and we have to utilize this body, have to learn how to utilize it expertly in Krishna's service, not only when we're in the temple, not that we come to the temple and we put on our halo and everyone sees our halo and we come out, we walk out, we deposit our halo at the door and then 2 little horns come up. We're back to normal life again, tucking our tail, the devotees don't see it. No, we have to go out, and Krishna is everywhere. Time is everywhere. We're eternally. And people are suffering everywhere because of lack of this knowledge. We have to become a little serious about delivering it to them, or else we won't take it seriously ourselves. Or as Prabhupada once wrote to me, he said, the more you work seriously to bring Krishna's other children back to the spiritual kingdom, the more he'll bestow all his blessings upon you. That Krishna is never ungrateful for efforts to serve him, rest assured. So the more we become serious about giving Krishna consciousness to others, at least to our families, at least that we have to become serious about. If we're not in the temple, we have to have a program every day in our houses. At least be serious about that, or else we'll never become serious about Krishna consciousness. And if we're not, then we'll remain in our karmi world, in our jnani world, in our power trip world, whatever it may be. And we'll never really take seriously this hearing and chanting about Krishna. And what to speak of Drita Vrata, constantly engage in Krishna's service throughout the 24 hours a day. That Prabhupada said is good management. And what to speak of the next, Namasyan Tasmam Bhaktya Nityukta Upasade. Sadatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Drita Vrataha. That's initiation, the time of initiation. We're supposed to deposit our false ego and accept a real ego that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna and try to conquer our mental bewilderment, the reactions of our past activities, and accept that I'm Krishna's servant. not only in the temple, but all the time. That's initiation. Or else it's just sentiment. It's just a formality. We're not trying, at least, to come to the platform of liberation from our material concepts of life. Then, namasyantasvamam bhak nityukta upasate. Is that right? Yeah? Sadatam kirtayanto mam yatantas chadritavrata namasyantasvamam bhaktya nityukta upasate. Yeah, and then we actually will realize Krishna. Then Krishna will reveal himself to us, and we'll fall in love with him. Then we'll see how wonderful, beautiful Krishna is. He has all these wonderful qualities, and we'll actually become humble and in love with Krishna. And we'll become in love with all of Krishna's devotees, because they're all manifestations of him. Then that's really perfection of life. We won't get four heads, we won't get mystic powers, we won't become rich or famous, we won't become anything other than what we are now, but we'll be in love with Krishna and everyone, and then we'll be happy. Otherwise, we'll just suffer in this world, an illusion. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. Very enlightening. Sometimes we get this dichotomy of without boiling the milk, without developing our personal Krishna consciousness, working on ourselves, we have nothing to give. But then we also hear the other side in Prabhupada's commentaries and our scriptures that with sharing we expand our own, we learn, we become the number one student, and by sharing we enhance our own spirituality. So how can we understand these two sides?
Well, I guess the first thing is to read Prabhupada's books. Find out what we actually have to give, what people need. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Yari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Aga Guru Karahe Desh. Whoever you meet, you should tell them about Krishna. What that takes intelligence, because we don't want to agitate people's minds. We want to introduce Krishna consciousness appropriately according to people's level of understanding it. But what people do understand immediately is our attitude. Simply if we actually think about what I should give to people, who this person is, what the circumstances are, just by thinking about that, people will become impressed with the fact that we're thoughtful. Matter of fact, when I have a GBC zone, which is sometimes I have quite interesting personalities in my GBC zone. So sometimes I think I know what actually people need, and I tell them that they don't. That's the last thing I want to hear. But if I sit there and I listen to what they tell me I have to know, what I need, and I listen to them, then they actually become impressed by that. They're not impressed if I tell them even if I know it, I think I know what they need, but that's not what they need. Although in one sense it may have some reality to it. But if I sit there and listen to them telling me what they think I need, then they become impressed by it. So we have to learn the art of dealing with different people under different circumstances. And probably the most important thing nowadays is to listen to people, telling them what they think we need, what they need, and then they'll be impressed. Then they'll be willing to listen to us. And then we may see what's appropriate. I mean, ultimately, Prabhupada tried to tell Professor Katowski that he wasn't his body in Moscow. He couldn't accept it. So then Prabhupada went into creating a class of men who would be Brahminical, who would be intelligent men. He couldn't accept that. And then Prabhupada said, can you get me a taxi? Because, so he knew who he was dealing with, and he didn't go beyond that. So we have to read Prabhupada's books, we have to follow the process, but we have something. Every time we meet everyone, we have to see, what do I have to do to help them become Krishna conscious? That's our duty. If we don't know the answer is, it's like when Dhruva Maharaj was entering into the Vaikuntha airplane, when it came to take him to Dhruva Loka, he didn't know what to say. I mean, this is a person who met Vishnu face to face. So he said, Hare Krishna. And that was perfect. So we don't have to know a whole lot. We just have to know some basic principles. We're not this body to appropriate people. And we can't say anything else. We just say Hare Krishna to people. That's perfect. Or whatever. That we have to think about, and then Krishna will give us the intelligence, because there's so many other opportunities. But we have to think, what does Krishna want me to tell him? We may think I'm incapable, I'm not qualified, but then we have to think. We have to ask Krishna, what do you want me to tell them? That's our qualification. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Being a grihastha, taking care of the kids and doing chanting, and not finding enough time to read the Prabhupada books, and I have a desire to master them, but it's not being practical. Can you give some, I heard Prabhupada used to push everybody to read his books, but we don't find anything like that now.
Well, he didn't push everyone, therefore they didn't read his books. He was concerned that they read his books, but he didn't push anyone. He had in the beginning, of course, we had classes every day in the morning, and generally in the evening we had classes. In that sense, everyone who lived in the temple, around the temple, all the grihasthas who came, they were forced to hear the books. Most of them just fell asleep for different reasons. But then the temple commander would come around with a squirt gun and squirt them in the face to wake them up. So in that sense, we were forced to try to hear the books. Not everyone was so submissive, though. Enthusiastic. And therefore probably was concerned. Probably understood that this is real philosophy, but he also understood that the material nature is there also to encourage us. If we don't accept the encouragement of a pure devotee, then material nature will come and encourage us to accept the mercy of the pure devotee. He'll come and beat us until we accept it. So, therefore, there's a team between the spiritual manifestations of Krishna, his representatives, and his manifestation is the material energy. So they'll beat us, like the police beat people if they're not submissive, so to make them submissive so they can become good citizens again. So we don't have to. So we should try to, as Prabhupada said, we should get a full diet of Krishna consciousness every day. So certainly we have 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day to hear Bhagavad Gita. So read the first verse, Dharma Kshetra, Kuru Kshetra, Samaveda Yutava, and try and memorize it. Try to understand it, how it's just spend 5 minutes a day, but memorize something so you can utilize it during the day. We don't have to get a whole lot of knowledge because generally speaking, we hear whole classes, we walk out, we don't even know who the lecturer was, which book we read. So at least if we walk out and remember that was the 9th canto, we're doing better than we did yesterday. We made some improvement. So we shouldn't get discouraged, just a little bit, read something and remember it, and then utilize it during the day, and that will be a great success. That will be one of the most important days of our existence. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. So we were talking about envy, how Kartavira, Arjuna's first downfall was envy, and you mentioned that Krishna is non-envious. Should we worry about why I have so much envy and just focus on the cure that glorify Krishna, glorifies devotees? Like, where did the envy come from?
Well, it comes from because we're envious of Krishna. Vayam dvija innoveshatasya ishadapatasya viparyosmiti. But you can't be envious of someone unless, to some degree, you appreciate them too. Enviousness of Krishna is another side of appreciating how wonderful and how great it is. How I should want to be like that. But we should have to recognize when we're envious, and then see, why should I be envious? What do I gain by being envious? Besides, there's a reality. We're not going to become Krishna just by becoming envious of him. But if he's the most beautiful, he's our best friend, then generally speaking, when someone does something for us, except in this case, you give someone a good meal and you take care of them, it's most of the time people appreciate when people, help them out, give them nice food and take care of them. Generally speaking, most people are envious. That's real envious, Kartavira Arjuna. Most of us are envious because we're in ignorance. We don't understand how wonderful Krishna is, how nice a friend he is. When we find that out, then we won't be envious of him anymore. We won't be envious of anyone. We'll see everyone is helping us. But he's a special case, Kartavira Arjuna. Even though he's gotten nice prasadam and nice reception, still he's envious. Because he's trying to become the Lord of the whole universe. For long, he must have done a lot of pious activities to do that. And now he finds someone greater than he is, so he's envious. But we've accepted Krishna as greater than we are. We're coming here, we're following his instructions. And if we just accept that, our end goal is to fall in love with him, then, gradually we can accept our position, our real position, and we won't be envious. Whatever envious is, we'll realize how nice Krishna is and how wonderful a friend he is, and we won't be envious of him anymore. Simple.
Jai Maharaj, so nice to see you and hear. So yesterday, our dear friend and Jagaranga came, and we read together. And he was mentioning that we were with Krishna, and then we somehow fell into this material energy, which is, Prabhupada says it's divine, it's coming from Krishna.
Yeah.
But so my question is, when we're speaking about envy, we've been stuck in this material world since time immemorial, it says. So was envy what brought us here? Envy of Krishna? That brought us into this?
Well, whether it brought us here, but it keeps us here. Not only Krishna, we're envious of everyone here in the material world. That's the nature of the material existence. And if we try to do something under Krishna's directions and under the direction of his authority, try to do what he wants us to do, then these things will go away.
I remember my spiritual master said, envy is what brought us here, and envy what keeps us here. And I remember him saying that if we ever think we want to go back into the spiritual world, we have to give up this envy.
Yeah, that's what Krishna says, idam tute guyatamam pravaksham anushuyave. Because you're never envious of me, Arjuna. But that's the process of understanding things better. Because ultimately, understanding how everything that's happening here is all under Krishna's arrangements. And therefore, any consciousness outside of Krishna consciousness is called material consciousness, which has an element of all kinds of nasty things such as enviousness, mainly lust, anger, and greed. So we have to see that we're under that energy, and if I try to improve my devotional service, then gradually those things will go away, and my real consciousness will manifest. My real existence will manifest, my natural existence. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a nice class. I'm trying to figure out how little boys want to grow up to be like daddy, and little girls want to grow up to be like mommy. So where does it become not, where does it go from adoration to envy?
Bad association. Bhamasura was the son of Krishna, but he had bad association. And therefore Bhamasura had bad association, therefore became a demon. So by bad association. And there's plenty of bad association. Just turn on Just go on YouTube or surf the internet. You'll find a lot of. It's all bad association, except for the Krishna consciousness. So there's plenty of, everywhere you go is bad association outside of Krishna consciousness. It's all producing simply enviousness. I remember walking here in Dallas one time on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. We walked by some we were walking by some houses. Prabhupada said, pointed out that all these people they're all living in these houses, they're all envious. That's material existence. Even in Treta Yuga, even in Kali Yuga, and in Satya Yuga. All right, thank you very much. Grandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.